the first team to ever make a Super Bowl, winning only 9 games. A quarterback room that threw 19 touchdowns and 29 interceptions. The LA Rams had the lowest winning percentage of any team to make it to the Super Bowl. So how did they do it? Against all odds. You have to be pretty good to get to the Super Bowl. But of the teams to get to the final game, there are tiers. And shall we say, the 1979 Rams are not on the top tier. They went 9-7 and won the division, but only beat 2 teams that finished with a winning record. It's funny because from 1973 to 1980, the only year they didn't eclipse 10 wins was the year they made it to the Super Bowl. They finished with a -8 point differential. Not an inspiring offense. Ray Malavasi was in his second year as head coach, and was defensive-minded. This is where the team's strength would lie. The front line consisted of 2 first-team All-Pros, Jack Youngblood, who played in the playoffs on a fractured leg, and Larry Brooks. They finished the year second in sacks with 52. Their dominance would be on display in Week 10 against the Seahawks, with a 24-0 shutout. They held the Seahawks to -7 yards for the game, and just 1 first down. While the quarterback play was less than ideal, they ranked 7th overall in rushing yards thanks to a strong O-line. It consisted of 4 second-team All-Pros and a first-team All-Pro in guard Dennis Harrer. But the Rams would have to deal with injuries throughout the season. They lost 18 players for at least 1 game, 6 for the season, and their starting quarterback, Pat Hayden, in Week 10. At that point, the Rams were 5-5, and Hayden had thrown 11 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. Backup Jeff Rutledge would play a couple games, but after 2 late interceptions against the Bears in Week 11 that allowed them to make a late fourth quarter comeback, Vince Ferragamo was the starting quarterback from Week 12. The Rams would then find their rhythm. Although his stats were nothing to write home about, with just over a 49% completion percentage, 689 yards, 4 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, he went 4-1 to finish the season, and he had a stronger arm, so the Rams started to throw more deep balls, and ultimately they'd turn it on when it mattered most. Entering the divisional round against the Cowboys, they were 8.5-point underdogs. They had lost to them earlier that season, 20-6, and 27-0 in the previous year's championship game. Today it would come down to 3 big plays. First, a quick 32-yard touchdown pass to take a 7-2 lead. Then, with 11 seconds left in the half, Ferragamo heaved it over 50 yards into the end zone. Rams receiver Ron Smith, in double coverage, came down with it, in what was the play of the game according to Tom Landry. Finally, down 19-14, with 2 minutes remaining, Ferragamo dropped back and passed it to his receiver. The ball was tipped, but there was enough on the pass to reach Billy Waddy, once labeled Cement Hands, who scored a 50-yard touchdown, pulling off a 21-19 upset. This time, in the championship game, they were 3.5-point favorites. In 5 years, LA had been to the championship game 4 times, losing each time, giving rise to the idea that they were playoff chokers. They lost 21-6 to the Bucs in the regular season. Yet today, despite scoring just 9 points on 3 field goals, the defense held Tampa Bay to 0 points. Doug Williams went a monstrous 2 of 13 for 12 yards and an interception before tearing his bicep. Backup Mike Ray came in and also went 2 of 13, but for 42 yards. I mean, the Bucs running back tied for most passing yards after a 42-yard halfback pass. It's the only conference game to end without either team scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl era. Funnily enough, despite being arguably the worst team to get to the Super Bowl, they actually played well against the Steelers, who had won 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls. They finished the game with 343 yards against the mighty Steel Curtain defense, and with Bradshaw throwing 3 interceptions, the game was close. They were up 19-17 in the third. Then, later in the fourth, with under 6 minutes left, down 24-19, Ferragamo threw a pick as Jack Lambert ended a promising drive. The Steelers would score again, finishing the game 31-19, but the Rams still put up an impressive fight.